Hey everybody, after you finish reading and answering the questions for part one of where are you going, where have you been, it would be a very good idea to check out this short video to help you focus on how to annotate and to make sure your answers are accurate and based on the evidence. So what I did was I went through the text myself and responded to the questions to give you a model. So yes, I am giving you the answers. So hopefully you are watching this and you can use this to help you with your responses to part one, and also use this as a guideline for responding to the other questions and directions in parts 2, 3, and 4 of the story. So as you read along, you might remember there were no directions or requirements until you get to the first question, which right here says reread the section above and underline all characterization for Connie. So when you do any kind of annotating or underlining, you want to keep what you underline minimal. I see oftentimes some students will highlight or underline the entire paragraph because it's all about the character. But then when you're going back to use that for evidence, you're just going to have to reread an entire paragraph again. So I wanted to show you this just to give you an idea of what I mean when you're like really honing in on the evidence that identifies who this person is, what she's doing, right? She's got this strange habit of giggling and craning her neck and glancing into mirrors to look at other people's faces. I should have underlined to make sure hers was all right. So just be very specific. Focus on the phrases that give you Connie's characterization, not entire sentences. All right. So after I went back and I did that and I answered the question. Now these are notes where your answers have to be fully developed paragraphs or at least complete sentences, depending on the question. So question one, reread the section above and underline characterization for Connie. And what's your general impression of her based on what you underlined? If I look back at everything I underlined, there's not just one characteristic that comes out about her, right? I have to put all these pieces together. So all the things I underlined tell me two different things. One is she's extremely self-centered, right? She's always looking in the mirror and gawking at herself, and she thinks she's so pretty. She sees through her mother. All of that characterization that says she's really in herself. And then the second half of this page is all about her horrible family. I would not want to live in this family. Her mother is constantly picking on her. Her father acts like he doesn't even want to be there. That makes me think, why might that be? Maybe mom used to even constantly pick at him and now he can't even stand to be there. But the whole point is, it is not a pleasant place to be. There's this older sister, June, who's Miss Perfect and does everything the way she's supposed to. I also wonder about her. I think, why is she like that? Is she just the oldest child who always does everything right? Or is this her way of coping with this messed up, dysfunctional family? So that's what I want you to do. I want you to like look at all that stuff and try to make sense of it a little bit and kind of wonder about it. So when I did that, I came up with, she is super self-conscious and she's so self-absorbed. She's into herself. Maybe because of this awful family life, right? And then it would be really easy for you to identify a little bit of evidence because you've already underlined it. So I'll give you a little bit more information along those lines by continuing through some of the questions. But you basically could apply what I just said to the first question to all of the other questions. Minimal focused underlining of the details, right? So that you can identify the evidence. And then coming up with a topic sentence or a short, straightforward, pithy answer to the question. Lots of people in class were asking me about the narration. So there's a third-person narrator, and that means they're outside of the story. We know they're outside of the story because they're saying Connie and her mother and they. They're using the third-person point of view. They're not saying, I did this, and I went here, and I wore bracelets on my thin wrists that jangled, or whatever. So that means the narrator is outside of the story. They're not one of the characters. And even though they're outside of the story, they're telling the story from a specific person's perspective or point of view. So whose head is the narrator in? Whose feelings are they revealing? So not what they're saying or things that anybody could hear, but what's going on inside their head. So that has to be Connie. Connie's the one who she knew she was pretty and that was everything. She had to hear her sister praised all the time. June did this, June did that. This is all Connie reflecting on her mother's horrible criticisms of her. And then Connie wished her mother was dead, and she wished she was dead. That's all Connie. And that's how you know that it's a third-person narrator, but they are revealing or telling you Connie's point of view in this story. And let's try for one more. What's your general impression of Connie's family? All right, again, if we look back at all of the things that we underline or we identified, right? So up here, we're talking about how Connie's mother is constantly picking and criticizing, right? She's really mean. And then she's also comparing Connie to her sister. And let's see, what else did we learn? Connie's mother has no objections to her going out, even though she's a lot younger than her big sister. And so she could go wherever she wanted. So what is your general impression of Connie's family? So I made some notes and then I said, oh, this sounds totally dysfunctional to me. So that would be my topic sentence. So you see I underlined it and then I put an arrow because these are just notes. You would want to be a little bit neater and start with like, oh, whatever your general impression is, Connie's family is dysfunctional. Connie's family is miserable and not a real family, something like that. And then go into the evidence, right? The mom's always picking at her. She's comparing her to June, the sister. The father, he's never home at all. And when he is, he's hiding behind the newspaper or he's going to bed. So pretty sad family. That's probably plenty. I don't want to bore you too much with these details, but I am going to upload these first few pages with my notes into Schoology so that you can have a look at them. Especially have a look at how I circled all the mentions of music. I think it's just on pages 3, maybe 4. Yeah, a little bit on page 4. Look at the mentions of music and look at the adjectives and the descriptions of the music. And you can, before you hand in your part 1 answers, you can look over this and make any changes you might want. I hope that was helpful. On Thursday, when we're all together, we will, I'll answer any questions that you have. All right, good luck.